The social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother have been moved out of detention in Romania to house arrest. The brothers are being investigated on allegations of rape, people trafficking and coercion.
I've been in one room since last year, so it's a little bit emotional. There is 0% chance of me being found guilty of something I have not done. I maintain my absolute innocence, and I think most people understand this. And thank you very much.
After 3 months in a Romanian jail without charge, the Tate brothers have finally been allowed to go home. The two British-American citizens were released on Friday and are now under house arrest just outside of the Romanian capital, Bucharest. Prosecutors suspect them of all sorts of crimes, including rape and human trafficking, but so far, they've charged them with nothing. So, what happens next? Will there be a trial? We're about to hear from one of his best friends, TamKhan in Dubai. And we'll also talk to a couple of lawyers. But first, this quick look at their release and the case against them. Back home once more, the Tate brothers have a taste of freedom. They remain, though, under house arrest while awaiting potential charges of human trafficking and rape. The social media influencer feels vindicated by his ordeal.
I truly believe that justice will be served in the end. There is 0% chance of me being found guilty of something I have not done.
Since their arrest in December, the Tates have spent more than 3 months in jail. Andrew Tate's businesses and social media kept going by somebody on the outside.
The matrix is cracking.
While inside these walls, Tate was plotting his comeback, pacing a 3-meter cell with zero electronics or outside contact, absolute clarity of mind. Real thoughts, real plans, vivid pain. 1 hour home and I can't stand my phone. For his brother Tristan, there was a different kind of pain. 4 months without putting on a pair of alligator shoes. The struggle was real. Tate had described his arrest as part of a plan to shut him down and possibly to even kill him.
I understand that you get 3 strikes in this game. Strike 1 is they try and shut you up and discredit you, which I've just been through. Strike 2 is they try and put you in jail for no reason. And strike 3 is they kill you.
The dual national may also be unhappy about the fact that neither the UK nor the United States seems to have put much pressure on Romania to deal with his case.
Why did the American embassy offer their help?
He has had his detention, originally for 30 days, extended 3 times. Something his famous American lawyer says is in breach of his human rights.
We think it's now crossed over to the point where it's violating international human rights law because the deprivation of your liberty pre-trial is the most severe form of punishment a state can impose.
Prosecutors, though, maintain that the Tates posed a serious flight risk thanks to their multiple passports. They also argue the brothers may try to intimidate witnesses. This time, the judge disagreed. The Tates may be home, but a few things have changed. In particular, police have impounded several of their luxury vehicles.
What's going to happen to the bridge? It's going to collapse?
Yeah, it might.
And then what? Buy a new car?
No, this is like, what, 6 million euro?
Let's buy a new one.
However, their main concern now is surely what will the prosecutors do next? They have until the end of June to try to make a case and put it to trial. Okay, let's hear from the man sometimes described as one of Andrew Tate's best friends, TamKhan. He's an entrepreneur based in Dubai, and he's very closely associated with the entire Tate team. Tam, can I start with how your friend is doing? Obviously, when he came out of jail, he said he was feeling very emotional. We've since seen pictures of him pacing up and down as if, you know, still trying to recall that very small cell he was in. How is he doing?
Thanks for having me, firstly. And Andrew and Tristan, they're both doing very well considering their unjust imprisonment, or what should we say, detention for the last 3 months. Of course, 24-hour lockdown would be mentally enduring for anyone, regardless if you're physically strong or you're male or female. But he's keeping very positive. We spoke the night he was released directly as soon as he was given his phone access back. He's kind of upset as well, disappointed, because obviously he knows there's no evidence. He was detained for so long, and he felt like it was just finally he could sleep in his own bed, have his own freedom to wear his own clothes, groom, practice Ramadan. As we know, he's a newly reverted Muslim, so small things he didn't get to experience during his detention in the cell. And
Yeah.
he told me he was actually locked down for 24 hours, which is crazy to think about. So he really literally was in a cell doing push-ups, fitness, mentally pacing back and forth. And to be in a cell that long without connection to the outside world, it would be heavy on any human, in my opinion. But considering all those aspects, he's doing very well, to be honest.
Can I share with you a tweet that you would have no doubt seen, and perhaps you can help us interpret this? He says, "I prepare my body to absorb the brutal kinetics of piercing lead. As all other silencing attempts have failed and stage 3 approaches, I anticipate a bullet will be the chosen utensil of pacification." I mean, is he serious about this, or is this hyperbole? Is he worried about an assassination attempt now?
Yeah, Andrew has always, I mean, when he first used to tell me this, I took it with a bit of pinch of salt, but now I'm trying to be a believer too. He said, look, he was telling me this for a few years, and he said, look, first they'll cancel me. Secondly, they'll wrongfully imprison me, which they did. Then when they realize that doesn't work, the last thing to do is silence me, unfortunately, in a way which is through assassination or murder, unfortunately. And he truly believes that because they tried their utmost, as he calls the Matrix, to silence him in this way due to imprisonment, they realized there's no evidence. They realized that didn't work. They realized the public outcry was crazy, the media attention. So now he truly feels that he is kind of a public enemy number one, and he is not so much paranoid, but he is to the point where he's really being safe, and he's not really touching base with many people apart from his close circle. And I think he, once, inshallah, God willing, he's released fully and fully free, I think he will have a full-time security team on hand, because he really truly believes that's next.
Has he ever told you explicitly who might try to kill him?
No, he just thinks there's an upper echelon of people, as he calls the Matrix, who kind of have their say on the world, rule the media, rule the world, rule how the money is distributed. He believes they just do not like what he's saying. He believes that he is a force for good and they're a force for evil, and that they want him eliminated.
Understood. Now, the day before he was released on house arrest, you were talking on a podcast, and you said you had a very strong feeling that he would be released on March the 31st, the next day. How did you know?
Just keeping in contact with his team and lawyers, and we realized, like any country, any Western country, you need to bring some new evidence or something new to the table to the judiciary, as they call it, to say, look, he should be extended for more days. If you're using the same weak evidence since day one and nothing's been brought to the table, and that evidence is not sufficient enough for the judiciary to formally charge them or put them to trial, then there is no reason to hold them. And I think
it was the Court of Appeal that allowed him to have house arrest after 3 months of detention without charge. Did the legal team give you any indication what had changed in that time in his favor?
It wasn't so. Yeah, it wasn't so much what has changed. It was that there's nothing has been brought to table of any additional news or new evidence, and it's the same 17,000-page file which was thrown out basically by the judiciary, or not thrown out as to say, but it wasn't strong enough to hold them or put them to trial. So therefore, the defense team said, look, if that's the case, why is he still in detainment? Why can't he be in house arrest at least? Why can't he have the freedom of sleeping in his own bed? And he's a well-known face. He's not going to be a travel hazard. He's not going to run away. The whole world knows him. He's the most Googled man on earth. Surely he can be on house arrest. And I think for once the appeal worked, and the new judges which reviewed it had them some sense to them, and really they did what was right.
Tam, he is, and his brother, obviously are dual nationals, both British and US citizens. And there is supposed to be a presumption of innocence, and they were held without charge, as I said, for 3 months. And although that is legal in Romania, both in Britain and the United States, that is not tolerated. Do you think that the UK and US governments should have intervened? Are the Tate brothers disappointed that they didn't receive any help?
I think they are, but at the same time, they expected that. They expected, due to their outgoing podcasts or verbal tirades in the past, they're not going to make the best of friends with certain governments, and I think they didn't expect any help on that way. But really we shouldn't let emotion get involved. They are citizens of these countries, as we saw in the US when they freed the WNBA player and they exchanged her with a arms dealer for Russia. I mean, she was a convicted criminal, so therefore there was no premise for them not to get involved. So I think until his lawyer from the States, Tina Glandon, spoke up, then I think they started taking more notice and realized, look, there are some human rights issues here, and we should really intervene on a personal level.
But you did mention his tirades on social media. Can I ask you about those? Because I know that you are a very strong supporter of Andrew Tate, and you don't believe the allegations against him are true. But prosecutors and others will point to what he said on the record on social media. Can I talk about the human trafficking allegations first of all? So he is said to have employed the lover boy method, where he makes women fall in love with him. Now, he has said on his website very, very clearly that is the method you need to use if you're going to set up a successful webcam business. So how do you reconcile that? He has said those things, but you say he's not guilty of human trafficking.
Yeah, I think with the social media revolution, I think we need to differentiate what is content creation and what is reality. And unfortunately, it's hard to differentiate with that. When you see this whole Top G's persona with the sunglasses, him telling these things, a lot of this time is satire. And unfortunately, yes, a lot of people won't agree and find it funny or entertaining. But a lot of these things touch buttons, young few. And I think his past, when he was a little not as polished as he is now, he made some comments which wasn't delivered well. But it's like attacking a rapper, for example, for saying, you say using gun violence, you use I'm a PIMP, these kind of words, I'm this, I'm that, aggression. But yet we pay millions for them to come and perform in stadiums in the UK, yet we say drugs, gang violence is illegal. So it's where you draw the line. I think it's content creation and reality is two different things. And yes, I agree, some of the delivery was wrong and it's now is biting him in the back, but I truly know he's not guilty. And I think a lot of these things are, I mean, the lover boy method could be used on different scales. I mean, how many men try to impress a lady by saying certain things in normal everyday dating? How many women use filters on certain programs? Are we going to have them arrested for not being real?
They don't then go on to exploit them financially in a massive webcam business, do they? But look, let's leave that point aside, because his lawyer has made the same point, which is there is a character and then there is the real Andrew Tate. And he hasn't done himself any favors by making the character look incredibly believable. I just want to point you to something he did say online when he boasted of scamming men with his webcam business. He was most sincere in that, and he was very impressed with himself that he'd managed to get women to persuade men to part with a great deal of money on false pretenses. Now, I think he was absolutely clear that that was a true business model for him. Do you agree that I mean, nobody's saying that was illegal per se, but do you agree that he was telling the truth sometimes about his business operations, even though they were unsavory but not illegal? Fair enough?
I mean, again, we're going to measure what's unsavory. Look at these cold callers, people who'll do anything to sell a brand, a thing. Everywhere I go, this is the best TV, this is that. People will do what they can just to make the deal. All he was saying was, there's a market of lonely men out there. I know how to manipulate them to make sales. And I mean, let's be honest, women do that with musicians, with products, with beauty products, with this and that, with push-up bras, you name it. These fake slimming pills. I'm in the fitness industry. Majority of supplements, BS. I mean, they're not going to make you lose weight. They don't make you in great shape. That's totally come down to working out and living on a strict diet, but yet they'll produce these products which say, take this 3 times a day and you can lose weight and you will look in a great shape. So
basically, it's salesman. It's sales, basically, is what you're saying. Look, we've come to the end of our time, unfortunately, Tam. Just one last question for you about Andrew Tate's plans. He has to have more preparation now for a potential trial, and he also has to come back and make his presence felt on social media. Can you tell me what he said about his plans going forward?
All I can say is that I think we can all agree, being your great program with a great presenter like yourself, that we're discussing Andrew Tate. Therefore, we can tell he's the most trending man on the planet right now. His first emergency meeting or podcast will probably break records. He's got great business plans, and all he wants to do is clear his name because he knows he's innocent. We all know he's innocent. Get back on track. relocate to wherever he's going to be, and then just build his business and take it to the next level. And I truly believe since his reversion to Islam, he's a changed man himself. He's more mature, and I think the future's looking bright, and inshallah, good news will come soon.
TamKhan, thank you so much for your time today in Dubai. Much appreciated. Let's turn to the legal affairs now. And DCOT have been investigating the Tate brothers since April last year. That's the branch of the Romanian police that deals with human trafficking and organised crime. But they only took them into custody about 8 months later. They have faced no charges so far, but prosecutors argued they needed to be kept in preventative detention, both to prevent witness tampering and because the brothers represent a flight risk with their multiple passports. They have had multiple appeals to be released turned down. That all changed on the 31st of March when a court of appeal released them from jail and put them under house arrest.
I just want to say that the judges today made the right decision. I respect what they've done for me, and they will be vindicated in their decision because I'm an innocent man and I can't wait to prove it.
I want to give respect, firstly, to the judges who heard us today because they were very attentive and they listened to us and they let us free, so I have to give absolute respect to them. I have no resentment in my heart for the country of Romania or for anybody else. I just believe in the truth.
It was political, so...
I believe in God, and I think that the fire of truth will eventually destroy all lies, and anybody who lies on a long enough time frame will feel the sting of regret, and I believe in this.
Let's bring in our two lawyers now, and we have Bruce Rivers once again. He's a criminal defense lawyer who's been following the Tate's case very closely. And we have Eric Fudali, who's represented victims of sex trafficking relating to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and others. Welcome, both of you, to the Nexus. Much appreciated. Bruce, let me start with you. What does the release of the Tate brothers into house arrest tell you about the strength of the prosecutor's case?
Well, what happens whenever you talk about conditions of release, for example, there's two things that the judge takes into account: risk of flight and danger to the public. And so he must have been convinced that they don't pose a risk of flight, or they can set up conditions that ameliorates the risk of harm to the public. I don't know that it says much about the strength of the government's case, because the strength of the government's case isn't something that they generally take into account. But the notoriety of it makes it so that Tate can't really walk or go anywhere without being spotted. So that might have played a bigger factor into it.
Of course, those factors were in place 3 months ago, but something has clearly changed, but it's not clear what.
I think it's probably the notoriety of the case, and his lawyers probably argued, okay, we can put them on home confinement. They're going to be watched. They're so out there now, and everybody knows who they are. There's just no way they could make a move. And that's the only thing I can think of. Their case is still the same case that they had at the beginning.
This sort of new, relatively famous lawyer, Tina Glandian, she's been working with them for a while now. Do you think she was perhaps able to bring some pressure to bear there?
I think she would like to think so.
Well, let's just say we'll leave it unsaid. How will the release to house arrest enhance the Tates' ability to work with their counsel in mounting a defense, should there be a trial before June?
Well, yeah, they have to try this case by June, otherwise it gets dismissed. But anytime your client is out of custody, it really helps a ton. They will be able to go to their lawyer's office with permission. They will be able to call their lawyer at will and review documents, and it just makes it so much easier.
Eric, I spoke to a Romanian human trafficking expert a couple of months ago in Bucharest, and she said that she was very concerned that if they were released from preventative detention, there is an increased risk that the brothers could potentially either intimidate witnesses or the alleged victims. Are you concerned about that? Does that come up a lot in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. That certainly is a big concern, especially when you look at the nature of a sex trafficking or human trafficking allegation. The whole impetus behind that is that the perpetrator has some sort of coercive control, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's sexual, that they have a control over the victims. That's how these sex trafficking and these human trafficking schemes work. So the risk is that if they are free, or at least not in custody, that they could continue to exert that force, whether it's direct or indirect, using physical or mental tools.
Tate's lawyer back in January told me that just look at the CCTV camera footage, or listen to any of the alleged potential victims, and what you find is that they were free to go. They were free to go shopping. They went out together. They called for deliveries of food. I mean, do you find that there are these specific challenges in building a human trafficking case where the women appear to be free but are not?
Absolutely. It's a big challenge for prosecutors and for attorneys representing victims of human trafficking and alleged sex trafficking, because oftentimes you're not seeing what you would expect that you see in the movies, where the victims are in a literal physical cage or actually physically held against their will. Typically, it's more of a coercive control, what we sort of call an invisible cage, an invisible prison, where they are forced to do things, mentally, physically, but without the physical shackles that you would see, in a movie, or what you would expect when you hear about a human trafficking case. So yeah, it actually is very difficult to prove those types of coercive control cases.
As you all know, 6 potential victims have been identified, and 2 of them have said very, very clearly they do not consider themselves to be victims. Do you think that should be accepted on its face?
Not necessarily accepted on its face. Certainly, it is something the defense will use. But again, in my experience, representing victims of alleged human trafficking or alleged sex trafficking, often there is quite a long period until the victim realizes that they're a victim. I almost compare it to sort of what we see in cults, where it takes a long time to sort of convince the victim and make the victim realize that, wow, they are in fact a victim. Because remember, the tactics that perpetrators use in your typical sex trafficking or human trafficking case is to convince the victim that they are not a victim. That's how they exert their control over the victim.
Bruce, you wanted to come in at this point?
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be this physical control. I mean, financial coercion is just as powerful. I mean, sure, they might be free to go, but guess what? They don't have any money. They don't have their passports. They can't go anywhere, and they've said that in some of these text messages. And on the issue of influencing witnesses, I read an article where one of the lawyers threatened to sue one of the American women that were there, victims or otherwise, for defamation, and to try to get her to not come back and talk about the Tate brothers. So I don't know if that's not. I haven't confirmed that, but I've seen it where the financial coercion is, and fraud. Andrew Tate himself has said that he has told the girls, "Oh, I need another 20% for taxes." Well, he doesn't pay any taxes, and that's another one of his charges. But and so he's claiming that they only get 30%. He takes another 20% for taxes, and it's not true. So all the other aspects, other than just physical, the physical aspect of keeping somebody there, you can keep somebody there by financial coercion too.
Yeah, and Bruce, the last time you appeared on the program, you said no matter how you feel about him personally, the fact is he still benefits from the presumption of innocence, as does his brother. Presumption of innocence, and the preventative detention, which has now gone on for 3 months until he was released on the 31st, was really undermining the legitimacy of the case against him. Is that, you still hold that to be true?
Absolutely. We don't have the same system here in America, or in Britain for that matter. And I think you need to be able to face your accuser. You need to know what you're charged with. You need to be able to mount a defense, and it's pretty difficult to do that if you're not afforded discovery, if you're not afforded all the rights and things that come with being charged and getting all the information so you can mount your defense. And so from that aspect, I'm glad that they've released him, but yeah, I'd like to see the process move a little quicker.
Aric Fidali, final question. Do you agree that these 2 brothers still benefit from the presumption of innocence, and that it was only fair that they be allowed out on house arrest to mount their defense with their lawyers, in a position where they can talk freely?
Well, looking from an American standard of criminal justice, certainly every person who's accused of a crime deserves their day in court. They deserve the chance to confront witnesses, and they are innocent until proven guilty. I'm certainly not an expert on the Romanian criminal justice system. I understand there are some stark differences. For instance, in Romania, you don't get a jury trial, you get a judge trial. And Andrew Tate, from what I can tell, at least his perception in the United States, he's a very unsympathetic figure, based on things that he's sort of bragged about. But certainly, that aside, and looking at it from an American standard of justice, every person who's accused of a crime absolutely deserves their day in court and is innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, and just on that point, obviously his lawyers said there's a great difference between Andrew Tate, the character that you see online, and the real Andrew Tate. I know that some of you would dispute that, but that is what is put forward in his defense. Aric Fudali and Bruce Rivers, thank you both very much for your contributions to the Nexus today. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. If you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, do go to our channel on YouTube. Just type in Nexus TRT World. Till next week then, goodbye.